Good evening, everybody. It is the Safety and the Sportswriter show with Knoxville, Nate, and Big Joe as we get ready to talk to you about the world of sports and particularly in football as we will go over the Super Bowl, what we liked about it, what we didn't like about it, plus get in and start taking a peek at next year. Every year we have these teams that drop out and other teams take their place when it comes to the playoffs. We're going to talk about who we think that's going to happen to, plus free agency and how that's going to affect the quarterback situation with a lot more than, I don't want to say a lot, but I'd say at least a third of the teams in the NFL who might have different quarterbacks when we start back to camp. So we got a lot to talk about. Nate, how are you doing? Looking sharp in that Ohio Wesleyan gear that you got there, including your former shirt. Show everybody your former shirt.
There we go. You know me, I'm a game-worn jersey guy. I finally got me a Battling Bishops game-worn jersey. That one will not be sold, however. That one's staying in the collection forever. So you gotta love OWU. But yeah, man, it was a fun Super Bowl, and I loved every minute of it until the end. You know, It was great. Great action. Both teams played some good football, some good strategy, good game plans, honestly, by both of them. And then then you started throwing flags, and that was ridiculous. I mean, the whole idea of this officiating crew was to, not control the game and not to disrupt the flow of the game. And then for whatever reason, they decide to throw that flag, and we got some video of it. So once we get into it here, we can take a look at it. But that bothered me. And also I've got some questions about Zach Taylor's personnel packages as well. But other than that, it was a great game and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, we'll start with the referees because I think he summed it up well. And I think another guy who summed it up well was Tony Dungy. For 58 minutes, they refereed one way, and for 2 minutes, they decided to call everything they could. And unfortunately, the Rams had the ball, and usually in those kind of situations, especially when we're talking about interference calls and things and holding things like that, it goes against the defense. It makes the defense hard for the defense to play. And I mean, people can sit there. I see people online talking about T. Higgins or T. Higgins on the touchdown, grabbing the face mask of Ramsey. It was the worst penalty I've ever seen. No, was it a penalty? Yeah, it could have been. But, it happened. For most of the game, they were letting those things go.
Yeah.
But it was just terrible that it comes down to the referees not swallowing their whistle at the end of the game. And the whole thing is, a lot of people are critical of referees and umpires and everything. And I go by the old adage, you can make some bad calls, but be consistent.
Yeah.
Throughout the game, be consistent. If you're going to call that holding in the fourth period, you better damn well be calling it in the second period.
Yeah. Or if you're going to call that defensive holding in the fourth quarter, you should have been calling it in the first quarter because they were letting it go. Right. And so, that he thought that was perfectly fine. And to be honest, I don't even think it was a holding. And as far as the, the T. Higgins play goes, there was about 4 teams that played their entire season without getting an offensive pass interference called on them this year. So they're not going to call that. And you didn't even, in real time, you didn't even see it.
No, you didn't.
And, he did kind of grab it. I mean, he grabbed the face mask, but guess what? It was a bang, bang play. And when you look at it in real time, you don't even see it.
Right.
So, I don't give me a break about missing the offensive pass interference like they call offensive pass interference ever, because they don't. I mean, they don't. And the problem I had was the play where, let's be honest, Wilson played an unbelievable game at middle linebacker. I mean, that guy's he's a rookie out of Wyoming and just all over the field, making plays in the run game, making plays in the passing game. As soon as I saw the matchup against Cooper Kupp, I was like, ooh, this could be a problem. Because they put Kupp in motion and Wilson got, lined up on him. And I'm like, man, this might not be good. And then I watched the play and I'm like, man, he did a pretty good job. And then, of course, the flag comes out instantly when the ball is thrown. And it's like, come on, man, that is that was the biggest play of the game. 3rd and 8 on the 8 going in, 3rd and goal essentially from the 8-yard line. I mean, you stop them there, then it's 4th and 8, and they've got to score a touchdown to win the game. Lot of not many plays you can run from the 8-yard line because there's nowhere to go. So right. I don't know, but I mean, you tell me. I mean, he didn't grab his jersey. He's not holding him.
No.
I mean, his hand is there, but he's not grabbing him at all, and he comes around and makes the play. I mean, right. That's a beautiful play. That is how they draw it up. That's how they teach you to do it. I mean, I don't know what else you want. Did he touch him? Yeah, he touched him. But guess what, Joe? This is a physical sport. You're allowed to touch.
If you're not going to allow them to, then don't let them play defense.
Right. And like you said, if you're going to call that a holding, then you should have called that a holding in the first quarter because they didn't.
Exactly. And that's what you're taught to do in sports. Adjust to how the referees are calling the game. In baseball, I mean, if they're calling the ball in the corner, throw the ball in the corner if you're a pitcher. And if you're a hitter, you better be looking for the ball in the corner. If you're calling the high strike, you look for the high strike. In basketball, if they're calling ticky-tack fouls, then you know to back off. If they're not calling them, you get up and you body the guy. You're taught. These guys are taught by their coaches to adjust to what the referees. And again, this always goes down. That referee, since it was such a key call, should have to come out and be questioned about it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's how baseball is played essentially at the major league level. You come out, you know, a lot of these guys know where the strike zone is for these different umpires.
Right.
So even before the game begins, they know where they should be throwing the ball because these guys are consistent and they at least call. Maybe their strike zone isn't the greatest, but they're at least consistent with their calls. And that's why in the first 3 innings or whatever, you may see some differences than what you see later on in the game because they adjust based on where they're calling balls and strikes. And that's the same thing with football. I mean, if somebody's calling, holding penalties on the offensive line, then you got to get less handsy. You got to get in tighter. You can't be reaching around if they're calling holds all day. But this game, I mean, the only penalties that were called the entire game were when the idiot ran out onto the field and was celebrating with the team when he wasn't even in uniform, and the punch that was thrown. So those were really the only 2 penalties that were called all game until that fourth quarter. So absolutely ridiculous in my opinion. And why come and have the refs decide one of the best played Super Bowls I've seen up to that point?
It was on its way to be a dominant game. It was on its way to being remembered as one of the great games of all time. Maybe not the greatest called game by the we'll talk about that later in the broadcast, but it was nice for Matt Stafford to show in the end and Cooper Kupp to show why he really could have been the MVP this year. Cooper Kupp could have been the MVP with the season he put together. Joe Burrow showed a lot of heart, which he has shown throughout the playoffs. You said it from the beginning. They've got to do something next year to shore up that offensive line, or he's going to be dead in 2 years. I mean, if someone brought it up, and it was so prophetic, they said, watch out, he'll do an Andrew Luck in 3 years because his body will take such a pounding that he won't be able to stay up there, and it won't be worth it for him to stay. So, as much as he loves the game, they've got to do something to shore up that offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, he sprained his MCL in the game. So, I mean, we saw it. I thought he was done.
Right.
I thought he was done right then because I saw him scream when he got bent backwards. And, I mean, 7 times, getting sacked 7 times in the Super Bowl, absolutely ridiculous. And some of the play calling was ridiculous because you knew that your offensive line wasn't going to hold up. You gave up 9 sacks in game 2 of the playoffs against the Titans. I mean, this offensive line has been a problem all year. The short passing game should have been utilized more. The quick hitters, the quick slants, maybe run a couple screens. I mean, you got to do something knowing that this is gonna happen. And this getting sacked 9 times in one playoff game is absolutely bonkers. And then he's been sacked more than any other quarterback in each of the last 2 seasons. So that is not good. And he's going to be in big trouble if they don't fix it. And they interviewed Zach Taylor yesterday and asked him if, the offensive line was going to be one of the, focal points moving forward. And he was like, that offensive line got us to the Super Bowl. I'm like, no, it didn't.
I think that's more coach speak. He knows in the back of his mind, or he better know. If he really means that, then he's stupid. I mean, because I can understand him not wanting to sell out his offensive line that got him to the Super Bowl a year. We never thought that Zach Taylor would be the coach of the Bengals when they got to the Super Bowl, and we thought Joe Burrow might get there, but they got there a couple of years earlier than expected. So I can understand to be in defense, and the whole thing is too. I blame the reporter. That's a stupid question at that time.
Yeah,
what I mean. You got months before the draft going. You could brought that up. I mean, he's still stinging from a heartbreaking loss, and as a coach, I could respect him for not wanting to go. Yeah, if we didn't have a crappy offensive line, we probably would be champions right now.
Well, it's true. It's a true story. I mean, they would have gone down and definitely kicked a field goal if they could have protected Joe Burrow there at the end, and they couldn't, and they couldn't really protect him all game. But he got the ball out quick enough to where he didn't go down. But this guy was sacked 70 times this season. 70 times in 1 year. I mean, that is ludicrous.
And the other thing, not to give him an excuse, but not having Uzama would have been a big safety valve for him.
Who's that? The tight end?
The tight end.
He played.
Yeah, but he wasn't healthy. He wasn't the healthy.
No, but he caught a couple passes. He played all right.
But what he's meant to that team all year long, he was another option over the middle that allowed things to happen. I don't think the Rams really were fearing him like they would have if he was healthy, playing on two good legs.
No, that's true. That's true. But I mean, my biggest thing was, Tyler Boyd, who is a sure-handed receiver. The guy is targeted, I think, over 90 times this season, and had over 70 receptions. Didn't have one drop the entire year, and what a time to have a drop. I mean, that was a crucial drop when it happened, and stopped their drive. And I kind of think back, that play on Wilson was huge, but the Rams defense really stepped up there in the second half and in the fourth quarter, and the Bengals couldn't get even close to get one more field goal. Could have kept them in the ball game and at least sent it to overtime, but they couldn't do anything.
They did, and I'll tell you one thing. I think that I was bothered by, first of all, the sideline play with Aaron Donald, where the fight started up. A lot of cases, if that was Tom Brady, the flag would have flown. If that was, most of the quarterbacks out there, Donald would have gotten flagged for it. And these guys, I've heard like when he's mic'd up, that these guys tell Joe Burrow, "You got to get down, man." And you get the referees, "You got to get down," and they warn him about those kind of things. But still, if that was Tom Brady, that there would have been laundry going all over the place.
Oh, definitely.
And he would have gotten 15 yards.
There's no doubt, and it was he did, the tackle began inbounds. There's no doubt about that, but he gave him a little extra what for, and that would have been called if it was Tom Brady. There's no doubt.
And we got to give credit to McVay. The fourth down call, the end around the Cooper Cup, is going to go down as one of the gutsiest and best plays in Super Bowl history. In that moment, in that kind of a game, to call that play took a lot of guts.
No, that was a very good play call, and I was very, very anxious to see, what do you call here? Because the run game didn't work all night. I mean, the Rams usually, they predicate all their offense based off their run game. They had 23 carries for 43 yards. That's 1.9 yards a clip. That is unbelievable, and something me and you talked about, at length off air, was that the Bengals defense was underrated all year long and extremely underrated in these playoffs. And that defense, to hold that Rams team to 23 points considering they scored 7 of them, in the last with a minute to go. That was a pretty nice effort, and to hold the Rams to 43 yards rushing was unbelievable, and I think needs to be noted.
Yeah. So, and we'll talk a little bit about the broadcast, and I want to get into looking at what we're looking at for in the off season, who we think are going to be going back.
One last thing, we got to give a shout out to our boy. I'm Knoxville Nate, and we've got a Knoxville kid, Mr. T. Higgins, who grew up, was born and raised right down the street in Oak Ridge, went to Oak Ridge High School, went to Clemson, won a national championship at Clemson. In his second season, makes the Super Bowl and goes for 4 catches for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. That kid, I watched him play basketball in high school. He was all state in basketball. He was all state in football. I watched him play in college and win a national championship with Dabo and Clemson. And now, him and Joe Burrow, along with Jamar Chase, helped lead this team to the Super Bowl. And I just got to give a shout out to a kid from right here in Knoxville. It was fun watching him play, and I'm going to look forward to watching him play even further into the future.
Definitely. And I'll tell you, we'll get into it as we break down the teams we think are going to drop and stuff. But Cincinnati's going to have to, Mike Brown got to get out of there and start spending some money because he's got some talent. And he's going to have to get talent on an offensive line to help these guys. He's got a lot of valuable pieces at the in wide receiver, running back, and quarterback, and tight end, and on his defense. He's going to have to spend some money. The Bengals are going to have to find some money to keep some of these guys here. You always lose somebody, but you got to get some guys you keep it down. Otherwise, it'll be a one and done. So the one thing about the broadcast, and I talked to you about it throughout it, man, would these guys, did Beckham give them all cars or something? I mean, Al Michaels, it was not fun to watch OBJ get carted off in the first half, but Al Michaels at one point in the second half he was having such a great game. He caught 2 passes. 2. Yes, one was for a touchdown. It was a nice catch, but it was an even better throw. And the other one, he came across the middle, caught a crossing route, and broke it for 30 yards. Other than that, he did nothing in the game.
No, he had 2 catches for 52 yards, and he had a touchdown, and it was a nice touchdown. But, this has been going on for months. And, ever since, he left, he was the one that was disgruntled. He was the one that wanted out of Cleveland. And let's be honest, we've already seen this story. He wanted out of New York. Yeah. He was disgruntled in New York. So there's a an ever-present theme, and that's Odell being disgruntled. Well, yeah, he wasn't disgruntled in LA because they made the freaking Super Bowl, and their number 2 receiver went out with a torn ligament in his knee, and so Odell was the number 2 option. Of course he was happy, but he's not going to be happy for long. And, honestly, his career is probably over. But I didn't understand the love fest with him and why they were talking him up. I mean, even the 2 games before, he had 2 catches, and they talked about him the entire postgame show. And I was like,
he's not Jerry Rice. He's not. Look, he's a supreme talent, but he's also a supreme pain in the neck. And I don't know. Everybody tries to defend this guy, which is fine. Maybe he is a nice guy. But stop with the overselling. This was not the Beckham Bowl.
No.
This should have been the story of Matt Stafford finally getting a shot. Matt Stafford, who suffered in Detroit for 13 years, played his ass off.
And never complained once, right. By the way.
Played his ass off. Was up there. His helped his wife through, a brain tumor.
Yeah.
I mean, and he's just been a model citizen. And he finally got the payoff he deserved. It was the story of Cooper Kupp having, next to Jerry Rice, maybe the greatest season by a wide receiver ever. But no, they make it about a guy who caught 40 passes for 6 touchdowns, was dropped by the Cleveland Browns halfway through or on Halloween, and. Yeah, okay. He joined a team that was already a playoff team.
Yeah, I mean, the Niners game, he had a good game. He had 9 catches for 113 yards, but that was an anomaly. I mean, other than that, he didn't eclipse 100 yards all season. He didn't have over 100 yards all season long for either team that he was on. So why you act like this guy is a game changer when he's not, I don't get it. I mean, I understand he's a cultural, figure who a lot of people, subscribe to his Twitter page or his Instagram or whatever the hell it is. But this guy did not eclipse 100 yards all year in the regular season. And the only game that he had over 100 yards was that, game against the Niners, where he had 9 catches for 113 yards. Other than that, pretty pedestrian numbers. And I'm not sure why we had to make the Super Bowl about him, because it certainly wasn't. He didn't even play in the second half, and they still won. So Don't tell me that it was all about him. He didn't even play.
They kept even flashing the pictures of him on the sideline.
Yeah, and I'm like, he's not in the game anymore. Why are we still talking about him?
No, it made no sense. It was like Chris Collinsworth was like his best friend. I don't get it. So that's enough of it on Beckham, but that's one thing I'm not going to miss when I'm pining for football over the next few months. So we'll put that to rest. Want to take a look. There's always a transition period between teams that make the playoffs and don't make the playoffs. So I'm going to pull up a little list here. And we're looking at the teams, and we'll start in the NFC. Teams that made the playoffs this year that we don't think are going to be back in the playoffs next year. We'll start at the top, Green Bay.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of question marks in Green Bay. I mean, I don't know whether or not Aaron Rodgers is coming back. I mean, he probably is, but let's just not even talk about Aaron Rodgers for a second, okay? Let's leave him out of it. Unrestricted free agents on the Packers: Devontae Adams, Kevin King, Robert Tonyan, Devondre Campbell, who had a hell of a season, Rasul Douglas, who had a hell of a season, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Dennis Kelly. I mean, these are all starters. So they're $50 million also, with cap, over the cap. So I'm very concerned about this Green Bay Packers team. Whether they get Aaron Rodgers signed or not, they're going to have a tough time getting all these other guys signed and getting them on the roster.
I totally agree, and I think Aaron Rodgers is going to look long and hard. I mean, like you said, with all those free agents, if he could get a package deal where he takes Devontae Adams to Denver with him, I mean, what would be better for him there? I mean, and they're talking about that. I guess he broke up with his girlfriend. Surprise, surprise. That's what they were reporting today or whatever. So,
did he really?
Yeah,
man, that didn't last long. They were engaged for like a month.
Yeah, God, it's just I don't know about that guy. Let's go to number 2, and I think both of us look at this team as in trouble. Tampa Bay. They put all their eggs in the Brady basket. It worked for them last year. It got them back to the playoffs this year, but no repeat, no Brady. First of all, you got to figure out who's going to go in there. You don't have a quarterback right now. A lot of rumors, but how much cap room do they have to bring somebody in?
They've got about $3 million in cap space, so not much. And this is the same thing, regardless of who they get to play quarterback or who they have playing quarterback. It doesn't really matter, because let me give you their list, because I'm kind of looking at a list of all the unrestricted free agents. So just going through the big names here: Chris Godwin, JPP, Ryan Jensen, Ndamukong Suh, Leonard Fournette, William Golson, Carlton Davis, Rob Gronkowski, O.J. Howard, Richard Sherman, Ronald Jones, Giannavi Bernard. I mean, Pierre Desir. I mean, the list goes on and on. Everybody that's on their team pretty much is a unrestricted free agent. And last year, with Brady coming back, these guys took discount deals and 1-year deals to try and run it back. No one's going to do that this year, and I expect this team and the core of it to be broken up. And I think they're going to go into a rebuild, honestly. I
think they should too, because I mean, they were built for this year. They were built for this 3-year run. Last year, this year, and next year. And now next year looks well in doubt. Plus, Gronkowski, I think, will definitely take the retirement option now without Brady. No reason for him to stick around.
Yeah, he's talking about potentially going to another team where he could have one more shot at a Super Bowl, but I'm thinking he's probably leaning towards retirement. I'm thinking the coach may potentially retire too. I think it's probably a good time for him to do it. I mean, this would be a great opportunity, I think, to promote one of your assistants and, let the old guy go to pasture, because if this does go into rebuild mode, does he have the energy to put up with that? I mean, I don't know. Bruce Arians has got a ripped Achilles and he's 70. I don't know if he's ready for a rebuild.
Well, he did announce that he was coming back, but like you said, things can change.
Yeah, wait till all these guys go elsewhere.
Yeah. The number 3 team, Dallas, who was totally disappointing. Dallas was being Dallas this year. A team retaining Mike McCarthy. They retain Quinn. They retain Moore, so their coaching staff stays in the same. It's going to be the same team coming back next year. The question with Dallas is, how did they get over their December, January swoons? And are they just not that team?
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a big year for Dallas. I mean, you talk about there was a lot of pressure on them this year. There's going to be even more pressure on them next year. I mean, they're already one of the favorites to win the Super Bowl, and I'm not seeing that. I mean, I didn't see it all year. I thought that at times Dak was a little shaky, especially after he missed that one game and then came back. He didn't look like the same guy. So I'm not really buying into the Dallas hype. Do I think that they'll make the playoffs next year? Yeah, I do. Basically because of the division that they're in. I mean, I think that as far as when I look at the rosters of the teams in the NFC East, I still think Dallas is probably the best and will probably win the division.
Yeah, I think that's a safe bet. I mean, we're going to go a lot of that through the offseason talking about it, but yeah, they're definitely the class of that division, and that's not saying much because of the division they're in. But all right, we'll move on to the Rams. Of course, they're being touted already as a repeater. You got Stafford, OBJ might be gone, but you got Cooper Kupp. Donald, if he retires, would be a heavy hit. But this team seems to be in good shape. I don't know. It's so hard to repeat, but I would not be betting against them making the playoffs next year. What about you?
I can see him in the playoffs. The big one to me is Aaron Donald. I mean, he makes this thing go. And I heard him talk yesterday, and basically he said that he wanted to come back if Von Miller and Odell Beckham were both coming back. Well, Odell Beckham's not even going to be ready for the beginning of the season. He tore his ACL in mid-February. So I really don't see the Rams signing him back. Maybe they sign him back, but he ain't going to be ready for the beginning of the season. And they don't have the cap room to sign Von Miller. They're negative $14 million as far as cap space goes. So how the hell are they going to sign Von Miller? I don't see that happening. So, the things that he said that he needed to come back for, neither one of those guys are going to be back. So I'm very concerned about that, because Aaron Donald, as he goes, this team goes.
And I mean, Von Miller, you look at him, and you know how I hate getting into these type of discussions, but I mean, 2 Super Bowl rings, one of the dominant defensive players of his era. He's got his place in Canton secure. He's got to be early 30s, mid 30s.
Aaron Donald?
No, Von Miller.
Von Miller. He was drafted in 2012, so he's probably a little bit older than that. I believe he is. I'm trying to think right now. He's 32 years old. He'll be 33 on March 26th.
That's still relatively young, but still, like I said, his bust they can start chiseling his bust right now. Does he want to go through it again? We don't know. But if the Rams bring him back, like you just said, do they have the cash to bring him back, or will he go look for someplace else to go and try and do it in 3 cities? Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they have I think they'd love to have him back. I mean, yeah, that was a great rental for them. It paid off in spades. He had a really good season, especially towards the end of his time in LA. He really, really took off and excelled, which who the hell wouldn't with Aaron Donald near you on that defensive line. But I just don't think they're going to have the cash to bring him back, and I just don't think he's going to take a discount to try and run it back with him. Maybe he will, but he's already got 2 Super Bowl rings, so why the hell does he care about getting a third? I mean, maybe he does. I don't know, but I just don't think he's going to give it to him for cheap.
Now the Arizona Cardinals, who were, man, they are like a psychiatrist's dream. They're played so well the first 10 weeks of the season, then they turned into a team that couldn't get out of its own way. And now you have the quarterback who, I don't know, this is the worst thing about social media. People look at what somebody does on Twitter or Instagram, and already they make an assumption that it means something. It may mean nothing. It may mean everything. I don't know. But everybody's got him on the psychiatrist's couch saying he wants out of Arizona. I don't know. First of all, this is a team I could see really making the playoffs because they're more talented than Seattle and San Francisco. I think are going to be in a mess in that division, which opens a door for them if they keep everything together and figure out what went wrong.
Yeah, I mean that's my issue with Arizona. I could see them potentially missing the playoffs just because of the division they play in, and also they've got no cap space and a ton of guys that are up for free agency. They traded for Zach Ertz in the middle of the season, worked out okay for him, but it was just a one half season rental. He's an unrestricted free agent. Their best pass rusher, Chandler Jones, is an unrestricted free agent. AJ Green, Chase Edmonds, Max Williams, James Conner, who had a huge season, Christian Kirk, Colt McCoy, who they needed to lean on pretty heavily when their quarterback got hurt. They got a lot of guys that are restricted free agents, and they really need to ramp up that wide receiver core because AJ Green just didn't really work out. And with Christian Kirk as a free agent, I can see the Arizona Cardinals, possibly taking a step back.
I want you to analyze, if you would, for me. Cliff Kingsbury did everything to get that quarterback. He got rid of Josh Rosen. This is his chosen man. We don't know because we're not there every day. We can't talk to them. They're welcome to come on and talk on our show anytime they want. But do you think that relationship has lost something?
It's seeming like it is. I mean, let's be honest. Things did not go well towards the end of the year. I mean, this is a team that, played really, really well at the beginning of the season. I mean, they were, the first place in the NFC and potentially the number one seed going into the playoffs. And then the wheels just fell off. And, this isn't the first time this has happened. I mean, last year, the year before, Kyler Murray was on pace to potentially be the MVP of the league. And then he got hurt, and then he just came back and he wasn't the same guy. So, I'm not 100% sure what the deal is, but it doesn't look good to me based on the way that their season ended up. I mean, what did they start off? They were, 12-2 or something? Yeah. And then they lost. Yeah, 10-1, 12-2. They lost 4 out of their last 5. They were able to beat Dallas in that playoff game, and then they got beat by Kansas City. So, not a good look. And a lot of those games, Murray just didn't look the same guy. He threw for 400 yards in the second week of the season, and then the last 13 games he didn't throw for over 250. So something's going on with him, and I'm not sure what it is, but he had the one decent game against the Rams actually where he threw for 383, but they still lost that game.
Right.
So I'm not sure what the deal is with them, but this coach Kingsbury has hitched his train to Kyler Murray's wagon. So they better get things figured out, and hopefully he'll put the Cardinals back on his Instagram because Everybody's freaking out right now, but Kyler Murray's not going anywhere. They're not going to trade him, and he's got years left on his deal. It's everybody else that they need to figure out how to sign, because Kyler Murray's not going anywhere.
And then right after them, they got San Francisco. Now, I look at San Francisco, and the first thing that comes out is Jimmy Garoppolo, who everybody. There's two hated quarterbacks right now in the NFL that I really don't, especially Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't know what he's done wrong, but it seems like every pundit in the NFL hates Jimmy Garoppolo and Baker Mayfield more than anything else.
Yeah,
and can't wait to get rid of these guys. I understand Baker because he's got all those commercials and he rubs people the wrong way with his cockiness sometimes and things like that. But Jimmy G. You tell me all the things he's not, but he wins.
Yeah, I'm a big Jimmy G fan.
I think in the right place.
I agree. I think in the right place, he could lead another team to the Super Bowl. Hell, he was one game away from the Super Bowl this year, and he went to the Super Bowl 3 years ago. So, that's the guy I would – and I'm not so sure that the 49ers are going to get rid of him. I mean, everybody on the outside thinks they are, but – I haven't heard anybody from inside their organization saying that they're moving on from him. I mean, I didn't see enough out of this young quarterback to think that he's ready. And, if they're wanting to, obviously they're close. I mean, they made it to the championship game. So obviously they're very close. Do you want to start over with a first-year starting quarterback? I mean, I don't think you do, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, you got Deebo Samuel. You got a lot of people in place. You got a good coach. I agree. I just don't get it. I really don't get it. I think John Lynch, when he looks back, when his GM book is closed, he's going to look on this and go, maybe I shouldn't have gotten involved in that trade for Trey Lance, an unknown quality. Maybe waited my time, and if Jimmy isn't the guy, sign a free agent. But to take a team that's 2 years removed from the Super Bowl, 3 years removed from the Super Bowl, and still talented and give it to an unknown quantity at quarterback and think that's going to take you over to the hump makes no sense in my mind.
Well, let me ask you this. Let's say that the Niners take Jamar Chase with their third pick in the draft. I mean, do they win the Super Bowl?
Maybe.
Potentially. I mean, their receiving core was the one thing kind of holding them back. I mean, Deebo Samuel was their best receiver. He was also, their best running back. So not that rookie didn't have a good year out of Louisiana, because he did. He was a pretty good runner and had a great rookie campaign. But one more weapon would have paid huge dividends for them. So this is when I go back and think about the Green Bay Packers being this close to a Super Bowl the last 3 years. And wasting that pick on Jordan Love. I think the same thing here with the 49ers. I mean, it's one thing if you've got a shot to get a surefire, no doubt guy like an Andrew Luck or somebody that is going to be a starter right away in the league. But These guys took chances on dudes that were unproven guys from small schools, and neither one of them's proved themselves to be a starter as of yet. So it's a wasted pick, in my opinion, especially for two teams that could have won the Super Bowl with one more piece.
Well said. And then we finally hit the Eagles, who made it into the playoffs, did better than expected with a new coach. I know you're a big fan of the quarterback. What's your assessment of the Eagles as we look towards the offseason with them?
Well, everybody was ready to throw Jalen Hurts on the scrap heap when they started off 2-5, but this was a guy who had only gotten to play in 4 games during his rookie campaign because they were wasting their time with Carson Wentz. Once he figured out the offense and got comfortable in it, and they started playing to Jalen's strengths, which is running the RPO stuff and letting him run the football occasionally, they had a lot of success. So I don't understand the Eagles fans or, the other pundits in the NFL telling me that this guy isn't a winner and can't take them, as far as they want to go. He took them to the damn playoffs in his first year as a starter with a first-year head coach. So Jalen doesn't worry me. I think he's fine. He's going to continue to get better. But they definitely need to upgrade their defense, and they need to get him some additional targets on offense. They need to probably get him additional tight end, and definitely need to get another wide receiver that's a possession guy.
All right, let's go. Let's go a quick review of the 7 in the NFC. We'll start with Green Bay. Make it or break it next year.
Man, it's too early to tell right now with all these guys, not being signed. But I'm gonna say break it.
Number 2, Tampa Bay. Make it or break it.
I'm gonna say break it.
Number 3, the Cowboys. Make it or break it.
I'm gonna say make it.
Number 4, Rams. Make it or break it.
I'm gonna say make it.
Number 5 is Arizona. Make it or break it.
Right now, I'll say make it.
Number 6, San Francisco. Make it or break it.
I'm going to say break it.
And number 7, the Philadelphia Eagles. Make it or break it.
I'm going to say make it with them.
All right, so we got 3 teams that are not going to make it next year coming out of the NFC.
Yeah, I feel pretty comfortable with that. I mean, obviously, we got to see how free agency plays out. We got to see what happens in the draft. But as the way things sit right now, those are my answers.
All right, let's slide over to the AFC. Number 1, Tennessee, team that without their best player was the number 1 seed. Without their best player for most of the year was the number 1 seed. Love Mike Vrabel as a coach, but we have to start with their biggest hole, which is Tannehill. And like you said, ain't no way you're going to get rid of that contract and bring somebody better in. So they got to find a way to fix him. What do you think about the Titans?
That he's a problem. I mean, he's a problem. If they're wanting to win the Super Bowl, he's going to be their biggest issue, because the rest of the team is good. The defense played a lot better this season than they did the year before. They struggled to stay healthy with all their weapons, but despite that, they still, won 12 games and were the number 1 seed. So I think this is still definitely a playoff team, especially because of the division they play in. I mean, I don't see the Colts, taking it from them. I don't see the Jaguars getting much better. And obviously the Texans are still in the S-hole. So, I think the Titans are going to be a playoff team strictly based upon the division they play in.
Next, Kansas City Chiefs. A team that I was putting up their epitaph early in the season. They made me look bad coming back and getting all the way to the number 2 seed. Mahomes is evolving as a quarterback. He's a different type of quarterback than he was 2 years ago. And also, the NFL has made adjustments to him. The one thing about you have to look at is the second half of the game against Cincinnati, which we've already talked about Cincinnati's defense being better than everybody expected. But is there a game plan between what was done by Tampa Bay last year, what was done early in the season, and what was done by Cincinnati? Is there now a game plan for controlling what was 2 years ago one of the most dynamic offenses we've ever seen? Is there a book to beating the Chiefs?
I don't think so. I mean, if you got Patrick Mahomes and you've got Kelsey and you've got Hill, you've got a problem on defense. And I know there was at times where it looked like some teams had figured him out, but all in all, this guy still got it done. Now, what was going on in the second half of that Bengals game, I have no idea. But that's the first time I've ever seen Patrick Mahomes look rattled. But still, this guy is proven to be one of the best young quarterbacks in the league. I'm not going to freak out about that. I think they'll be fine. They've got enough weapons coming back where I think that offense will still be high octane. But they've got to figure out the situation with the left tackle, Orlando Brown. He had a very good season, but they traded for him before the year and his contract's expired. So they don't have much cap space, but they have to figure out a way, I think, to get Orlando Brown back on the roster because he played well enough to earn a new deal. All
right. Next up, Buffalo. Came up short again and lost one of the great football games we've ever seen. I mean, in that game against Kansas City reminded me so much, for lack of a better analogy, it reminded me so much of Duke, Kentucky with the Leitner shot, the way that thing went back and forth and back and forth. It was more like a great basketball game than a football game. And I mean, they've got their quarterback, they've got their offense, but they also now we're going. Is this the third or fourth year? We'll give it the third year that they're going to come into the season rated as should be looking to get to the Super Bowl, and this is kind of getting where the coach is going to get a little pressure, the team's going to get a little pressure. What's your overall feel of the Bills?
Yeah, I mean they're gonna have pressure on them, but they had pressure on them this year too, and they had some early season struggles, and they were able to overcome them. So the one thing that we have to remember is their offensive coordinator's gone, and that's a guy that's been with Josh Allen, pretty much his whole career there. So that's something that could be concerning. However, they promoted from within with Ken Dorsey, so hopefully it'll be a seamless transition. I still like this roster. I like their coaching staff. I'm not worried about the Bills making the playoffs. That's for damn sure.
Number 4, Cincinnati. We talked at length about this. It's all going to come up down to the offensive line, but they're not going to creep up on anybody. You got to remember, things fell into line with them last year with the Ravens getting so beat up and losing so many key players, including their quarterback. So the Ravens should be healthy and should be a good rival. The other thing is going to be, can the Browns figure it out? I mean, is Baker Mayfield going to be their quarterback? You and I talked about this at length throughout the year. We thought he should have been sat down when he first got injured, and the coach didn't do it. They suffered for it. They were supposed to be the prohibitive one of the guys. They were supposed to be in the Cincinnati seat this year, and they weren't. But for Cincinnati, how do you like Cincinnati coming back next year?
Yeah, I mean, that's what concerns me is they're definitely not going to sneak up on anybody. I mean, this is a team that everybody knows now made the Super Bowl and really finished the year out strong. So that's concerning to me. And then also they've got some issues. I mean, the offensive line is an issue that they need to get fixed. They've got a lot of free agents as well with Jesse Bates, their starting safety, CJ Uzama, their tight end. Some other guys that we don't really need to talk about, but are also free agents. But they've got a lot of cap space, so it's going to be interesting to see who they sign. But I definitely think they're going to need to upgrade in some areas if they want to get back to the playoffs, because their division's no joke. I mean, I know Ben Roethlisberger's gone, but the Steelers will still be a tough out. The Ravens are going to have all those 26 guys coming back from IR. So I expect the Ravens to be a lot better next year. And then the Browns, if healthy, Baker could potentially get back to form that he was at the year before when they won, 11 games, 12 games? Right. So I think it was 12 games if you include the playoff games. So I think it's going to be tough to get back to the playoffs based on the division that they're in and the schedule that they're going to have, because they do the scheduling based upon their previous year's record, and getting to the Super Bowl is not going to do them any favors with the scheduling guys.
Because they're going to have the Bills, they're going to have Tennessee, and they're probably going to have Kansas City sitting on their schedule somewhere.
Exactly.
The Raiders, here's a team with, you got to think, new coaching staff, Josh McDaniel coming in. Does he like Carr? Mariota's a free agent. I don't know how much that hurts or helps. They were a team that overachieved to make the playoffs, and now they got Josh McDaniel coming in to hopefully take them to a promised land. But there again, they got the Chargers in their division, they got the Chiefs in their division, they got Denver potentially with Aaron Rodgers in their division. What do you think about the Raiders?
Yeah, they've got a tough division. There's no doubt. Every team is pretty damn good. All 4 teams are solid, and we're above or around 500 or better. But they've got some cap space. I like their new coaching staff. I liked the head coaching hire, and then they signed Patrick Graham to be their new defensive coordinator, and I like that too.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens, but I think this is a team that could potentially make the playoffs if things go right.
Next, New England. Mac Jones delivered a year ahead of time. He showed some wear and tear late in the season, but that's a rookie. That's late in the season. He hit the wall. But Belichick showed that he still hasn't lost his edge, although he'll be doing it without Josh McDaniel. It'll be interesting to see who he brings in there. But they got their COVID people back, and around Thanksgiving, people were writing their ticket to the Super Bowl. Unfortunately, they fell into a slump at the end. But what do you think about the Patriots?
I think the Patriots need to sign one more wide receiver. I think they need a downfield guy that can open up the passing game and help them to continue to be able to run the football. And they need another deep threat if they're going to be able to do that. So I really think their number one priority is to sign J.C. Jackson and keep him. They let their guy leave last year, who was the previous defensive player of the year, who ended up, I think he signed with Carolina. Is that correct? Yeah. So they let him walk and let him sign with Carolina. But they need to keep J.C. Jackson because you let Stephon Gilmore leave. You got to keep Jackson. So I think their number one priority is to sign J.C. Jackson. Number two priority is to get one more solid wide receiver. But I trust the personnel department here at this team. So I'm feeling pretty strong, especially after the offseason last year where they obviously killed it.
And then we got Pittsburgh. You already talked that with that coaching staff, they're always going to be in it, but they're not going to have Ben Roethlisberger. A lot of people putting people like Garoppolo there, Carson Wentz there, because now it looks like Indianapolis is going to try and get rid of Wentz and all his problems, which would make sense, even though I don't know who they bring in instead of him. But Pittsburgh, Tomlin, as he's shown, even when he doesn't have his best players, he's an 8-8 coach, which is amazing when you think about it. What do you think about the Steelers?
Yeah, I mean, this is a weird time for the Steelers. I mean, they've had their quarterback for 20-something years. So this is going to be a strange year for them. But, we've seen Ben go in and out of the lineup over the past several seasons, and they've been able to win with guys that aren't really starters in this league. The interesting thing to me will be to see if they bring somebody in or whether they try and run it out with, my boy Dwayne Haskins and Mason Rudolph. I just have a hard time believing that they trust those two guys enough that they're not even going to bring someone in to compete with them. I really think they're going to, but we'll find out. They've got $31 million in cap space, so they've got the ability to make some moves here in the offseason, and I think there's going to be a lot of turnover on this roster.
And if they don't get a quarterback, it would be such a waste of that talent on the outside they got at wide receiver.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to get somebody that can utilize them so that it sets up Najee Harris with the running game. So he's not going to have to deal with 8 guys in the box or 9 guys in the box. Like I said, Claypool and those guys, you want somebody who can utilize their talents. So you got to get a quarterback in there.
And they've got talent. I mean, they've got Deontay Johnson. They've got Claypool. They've got the young tight end Freiermuth. I mean, they've got some really good skill position guys, but who's going to get them the ball? I mean, that's what it comes down to. So it's going to be really interesting to see, who they get to pull the trigger. I think this would be a pretty good spot for old Aaron, especially since he's free now. I read that he, Cheyenne Woodley said that Aaron put football first. Well, that is kind of that's where he gets his $40 million a year from, darling. Well, of course he's going to put that first.
That would make sense. And man, if he could bring Devontae Adams with him,
that's what I'm saying, man. I mean, I think the Steelers would be a good landing spot for him if he wants out of town.
What a trade up that would be from nothing against Schuster, but man, you lose him and you bring in Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers to go with Claypool and the other guy. My God. That would be one of the most explosive offenses right off the bat. All right, let's start at the top. Tennessee, make it or break it.
Make it.
Kansas City, make it or break it.
Make it.
Buffalo, make it or break it.
Make it.
Cincinnati.
I'm going to say break it.
Okay, and so I thought that would be coming. Raiders, make it or break it.
I'm going to say break it.
Patriots.
Make it.
And Pittsburgh.
I'm gonna say make it.
And it's hard to go against Tomlin. I got one. Here's I got a list here of the 5 teams that this list somebody put together that are going to be most likely take a big dive in this season, and a few we agree with. Starting out, the Saints.
Yeah, man. The Saints is one of the biggest messes in all of this. I mean, you still got Michael Thomas, who hasn't played in over a year and a half. You've got no quarterback. You've got no head coach. You got cap issues galore. The Saints are a mess right now, and they've got a lot to get figured out. And they need to get it figured out really quick.
And the other team that we didn't talk about that this guy says is going to be a team that takes a big fall is the Colts.
Yeah, I mean that's potential. That they definitely have the potential. I mean, they want to get rid of Carson Wentz, which I don't blame them for. But who the hell are they going to replace him with? I mean, that's the issue.
That's where I think if I was looking, that's where a Garoppolo would look really good in blue and white.
I can see that.
Play action guy, 2 good running backs, a quarterback friendly coach. I think that would be an idea, and plus playing in a dome.
Yeah, no, I could see that. I could see that. That would be a good landing spot for him, as we talked about a good landing spot for Aaron Rodgers, which we've got a number of them. There's a lot of good landing spots for Jimmy Garoppolo as well, because that's a guy I'd take on my team any day.
Me too. Well, we're going to end that here right now because I want to save the quarterbacks and the free agents for next week. I think we hit on the teams that we don't think are going to make the playoffs, and we're going to make the playoffs next year. And we broke down the Super Bowl pretty good. Anything else you want to touch on before we say goodnight?
No, just want to remind everybody to watch the replay of the Man Coverage show. We had a huge show on Sunday. We had 2 former Buckeye legends, Steve Belisari, and also former tight end Darnell Sanders on the show. So it was a great show. We talked about recruiting. We talked about the big games they played in their careers and life after football, all that kind of stuff. And it was a great show. So I encourage everybody to check that out. And we may have some pretty nice guests coming this Sunday too. We got to confirm it tomorrow, but we should have some guests joining us on this Sunday as well on Man Coverage.
And last night, trivia was a cool night at the Bank House. Had a nice competition. We doubled our crowd. Please, everybody come on down if you're in Norwalk and looking for something to do, especially in the middle of the week. It's a great time. They have great food and drink specials, and we play a little trivia, and I'll get you home by 9. So it won't be a late night. You won't be worried about getting up the next morning. Of course, if you overdrink, it's your problem. But no, you won't, because you're going to be testing your mind. And come on down and play every Wednesday night at the Bank House, River Street in Norwalk. And I might have another gig going on pretty soon up here too, as I search for other things to do when I'm not on this show. And everybody, tune in. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Man, it's going to be a full football withdrawal this weekend. Thank God for college basketball. Let's talk a little bit before we go to the Villanova-Providence game the other night. What was your for Providence, for their record? I wasn't that impressed. I mean, what did you think about Providence?
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't seen. I have to be honest, I hadn't seen them play all year, so I wanted to get a good look at them, and I was like, wow, why not watch them play? Against a good team like Villanova. And I was like, this should be a good game. Well, it was a good game. It was back and forth all night long. 89-84 was the final. So it's not like they didn't show up. They don't
have a Gillespie.
No, their guard play is what bothered me. I mean, AJ Reeves had 16 points and Durham had 13. Both are decent guards, but their best player is Watson, their center. And I think they're going to have to get more out of those 2 guards as they move along. Now, they did have a guy coming off the bench, Jay Bynum, who poured in 18. So maybe if they can get some sort of combination of the 3 of those guys, that'll be good. But that was a big test for them, I think, is that Villanova game, and didn't work out good.
Well, the two things that come to mind for me is, first of all, like you just pointed out, tournament time, it's all about the guard play. And secondly, I think they said they lead the nation in close games, in victories in close games.
Yeah, 11. They had 11 close ones.
I hate that stat because you know what that tells me? That easily the tide of luck could turn against you. Those things that happen to you in close games, the ball that bounces right, the ball that goes off someone's shoe, the bad pass by another team, it tends to even out. When you talk about close victories, it tends to even out in the end, and they don't really have a star player, at least in the guard position, they can depend on that I saw.
No, it's true, but I mean, I think it's good for basketball to have Providence back in the fold. I mean, 21-3, that's a great record. I love, I remember them when I was a kid, always having some great players. So it's nice to see the team down in Rhode Island coming back into it. I like it. So hopefully they will be able to keep winning some close ones because I like seeing them back in the college basketball world.
I go back even further, and I won't name how far back, but I will say I remember when Billy the Kid Donovan was their star. And
yeah, that was before my time.
I know, you were a little kid, but he was a great player. So anyway, everybody have a great night tonight. Have a great weekend. I guess we're going to get some weather throughout the country. I don't know if it's going to touch your area. I think we're going to get mostly rain up here, but I guess Midwest through the middle eastern coast is going to get some snow this weekend. So everybody who's in those areas, hang in there. Have some fun this weekend, and we will be back next week on Thursday night at 7 o'clock. The Safety and the Sportswriter Show with Knoxville Nate and Big Joe. Thanks for tuning in tonight.
Adios.